Welcome to Jets Rewind. This is Marty Shupak, and we're recording. I'm in Valley Cottage, New York. It's April 1st. It's Thursday. We're doing this 7:30 Eastern Time. I'm joined by Ralph Schrager in Belmont, Mass. Ray Clifford is taking the night off, a well-deserved night off, and it's a special show tonight because we have a special guest, Rich Tinley, who covers the Jets for a terrific website called drafttech.com. And that's two T's, right, Rich?
Yeah, correct.
Two T's. It's drafttech.com. Rich has been a Jet fan for a long time. He's over in Ireland. And Rich, welcome to the show. We're going to discuss all Jets. It's going to be fun. It's going to be relaxed. But tell the fans how you became a Jet fan being over in Ireland. And just, I could tell you this, the fans, that this is one guy that bleeds green. I could tell you that. So go ahead, Rich. How did you become a Jet fan?
Hi, Marty. Delighted to be on the show first off. I became a Jets fan back in the early 80s, the Ken O'Brien days, those great days. I've been a fan ever since. I suppose it was just a new sport come on the TV, on Irish TV, and the first game that was on was the Jets versus the Patriots, and I chose the team in green with O'Brien as a quarterback.
I figured the green had something to do with it, yeah.
Yeah,
Good thing they weren't playing the Eagles or the Packers, right?
That's right.
Well, actually, one of my favorite players growing up was actually Randall Cunningham, the Eagles quarterback. So yeah, it was a close call, but I always really liked the Jets a lot more, just the sort of
with all the aggravation
back then, that sort of smash mouth football sort of was what I liked to see. So that was more sort of my style back then, and the uniforms as well, like the old logo with the Jets on the side of the helmet. It was all like a very attractive package to a 10-year-old kid. So yeah, I've been a fan ever since.
Right. All right, Rich, hopefully we can bring back that smash mouth football. Let's get right into it quickly. We did our show, covered the last 2 weeks about the free agents. Ralph and I just want to get an idea of how you felt about their signings, and you think that Joe Douglas did a good job. I was a little disappointed about the offensive line, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, I listened to the show there last week. I agree with a lot of what you said on your evaluations. I suppose for me, the only difference would be I would have seen Carl Lawson maybe as maybe we paid a bit too much from, as in at 15 million a year, I'm kind of expecting 12 to 15 sacks a year. He's produced 5.5 so far, so there's probably a bit more pressure on him with the contract he was given. He's probably more of a guy you want to pay, I would have said 11, in the hope that he's going to get 8 to 10 sacks and then build from that. But yeah, I think he's probably going to start under pressure from the get-go, just purely because of the contract. I liked Davis at wide receiver. I thought he was actually probably an easy sort of signing in terms of, you looked at the guys out there. He was playing with Tennessee. I think we're all assuming that San Francisco's style of offense is what we're going to be running. And he's a big guy. He's on a blocking team. I think blocking for our wide receivers are going to be important. He ticks that box. He's got good height. He's the type of guy, you were asking who could be the surprise guy in last week's show. For me, he's the type of guy that could haul in 10 touchdowns this year. Depending on who the quarterback is and things like that. But he has that capability to be a real red zone threat with his height. Really a sort of great addition to the run game too. So that's the signing I probably like the most. There was a few questionable ones as well, like Davis, the first signing at linebacker. I didn't think there would have been much of a market for that guy. When you look, we paid him 7 and sort of cut Williamson last year for saving 6 million. It's a bit of a strange move for me. And yeah, I suppose the O-line has probably been a little bit neglected, but I'm going to give Joe Douglas a little bit of a break because it takes two to tango. So as much as we might have wanted really good guys to come in here, if they don't want to come, there's not really a lot you can do. And I think when the chances between the Jets and Kansas City, if you're the top guard, you're probably going to go to Kansas City, looking at how they played in the Super Bowl as well, if you know what I mean. as in that's probably an area of need for them. And yeah, I think like I would have loved Joe Tooney. He was the top sort of free agent on my list, as in he would take a really, really good sort of need in terms of, if we were to move on with a new quarterback. The interior last year was weak for me, so I think that needs a bit of an upgrade and still does in this draft too. So yeah, that would be probably the only disappointment, but I wouldn't like give him too much slack over. As I said, it takes two to tango, and if Tooney doesn't want to come here, there's nothing we can do,
Ralph, any questions for Rich on the free agents before we move on to the draft?
I just one quick comment. Carl Lawson's kind of interesting. I watched a lot of film on him, and it did show up that a lot of times he was flushing the quarterback and other guys were getting sacks, but it was his initial rush. So I felt a little better when I saw that, because I know the 5 sacks seems kind of low, but I think he's more effective than that shows. And I also think the 15 mil, probably it's because the Jets were the Jets, and we need to pay a little bit more, unfortunately, at this point, to attract good players. But
yeah, and I kind of think, Rich, too, that sacks, they look great, but they can be a little bit overrated. And Lawson is tremendously quick off the ball. And what we're excited about, and you probably are too, Rich, is seeing how what's his name, Williams plays with our line plays with Lawson. It should be very interesting. So I'm very excited.
I totally agree in terms of him being a great fit. I just think 15 million brings a lot of expectation from day one.
mhm.
That's sort of my fear for him, because
Right.
like if he came in at 11 million, if he got 8 sacks next year, or 8 to 10, you'd be like, great, that's pretty good. But at 15 million, you're probably thinking, well, we could do it a little bit more, So that's just my only sort of little,
Yeah.
it's more sort of in terms of how fans are going to see this 15 million guy, because we're paying him like he's an established guy, but he really isn't yet. He's had one full season. As I said, I do think he's going to be a very good fit. And when we go in to talk about the draft, I have a bit of a scenario that has come up with our draft tech mock this week that had Gregory Rousseau falling past 23. So like if you were like looking at maybe him as an option at 23, potentially getting one of the best pass rushers in the draft, I know Robert Saleh would be probably quite enthusiastic about the prospect of having Lawson on one side and Rousseau on the other, with Quinnen Williams in the middle. And we have got good depth on that D-line. So Lawson is a very, very good fit. I just think, how to say, as much as like, I think you were saying like about sacks being sort of blown out of proportion, I think pressures are too. Like I've seen marks of like 60 pressures. Like for me, the end zone for a pass rusher is sacking the quarterback. That's the touchdown. So I'd rather getting guys into the end zone than the red zone, which for me is like precious, So that would be the only difference in opinion I'd have on that. I would prefer sacks, because that's the play ended, You can still throw a touchdown under pressure.
Did you see, again, I want to get right into the draft, but did you see Zach Wilson's pro day?
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah, really impressive. Like, I think, as I said, there's probably going to be a bit more emphasis on pro days and stuff like that, because of the way the college season was with COVID, less games and things like that. So any sort of extra things you can view on prospects you like, the better. And there's probably even more pressure on those things now as well, because of the sort of broken up college season. So to come out and perform like that, I know pro days are usually set up for players to succeed, but you still have to work and execute, and he was very, very impressive. Like, I'm not even sure that he's not going to go first to the Jags. I think we still have a chance at Trevor Lawrence potentially. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if like, we think a couple of years back, Sam Darnold was the first overall pick. We were trading up for Baker Mayfield, really, at this time.
But this is a special situation. I'll run over to Ireland and shake your hand if that happens. It's not going to happen. I'm not saying it's 100%, but it's as close to 100% as possible.
Jags are a strange organization.
I know, you're right. And don't forget, the coach, he was the only coach that didn't go to Zach Wilson's pro day.
Yeah, and the Jets had all three there. That was the only time I think the GM, the head coach, and the offensive coordinator went to the pro day. So
is that true? Is the only time? I didn't know that.
Yeah. is there any scenario, and I don't want Ralph to start shaking his head and hang up on us. Is there any scenario,
Cut out.
Rich,
Yeah.
where the Jets, Joe Douglas decides to keep Sam Darnold and trade out of the number 2 pick?
Yeah, I think if he wants to be fired, maybe that's scenario. Like,
Okay, so-
let me put you like this. Like, for me looking at it, we've watched 3 years of Sam Darnold, right? You
Yeah.
can't have watched 3 years of Sam Darnold as a year 1 head coach and think this is my guy. We're not going to have a plan B or anything like that. Now, I would be okay with drafting a quarterback 2nd overall, or drafting a quarterback in general, if you know what I mean, and finishing off Darnold's 4-year contract with him starting next year, sitting a rookie. Like, but I don't think we should be investing in Darnold's future. Like, you were talking last week about that you would be okay with maybe getting a 4th or a 5th round pick. If we played Sam Darnold next year for the full season while we sort of built a team around the rookie sitting on the bench, he goes into free agency, you're probably getting a conditional 3rd round pick if he gets 20 million of a contract, you know? So you're actually kind of keeping them to bet on maybe getting more than you would in a trade scenario right now. And for me, you're protecting a rookie doing something a little bit different that the Jets haven't done. We automatically throw guys into the fire when, like, there's 2 type of sort of components to a prospect walking out. One is the talent of the prospect, and one is where they're planted into. If they're planted into an area where they have room to grow and flourish, they'll do that. Sam Darnold wasn't planted into that area. And I don't think the Jets team are that much more along for any new quarterback to be planted in, not safely anyway. And also, I don't think I've ever heard like an excuse or a reason for a QB not walking out was because he didn't play his rookie season. We're always mad to get these rookies in to play, but a lot of good rookies sit their first year and become great players at year 2 onwards. Like, so also I think, the fact being Darnold is going to be wanting a lot of money, even if he does play well. The rookie gives you 4 more years of like being able to build the roster while you're paying less than 10 million for a quarterback. So that, as I think the salary cap increases and you see these QB contracts going massively up, like Deshaun Watson, 42 million getting paid in a couple of years, Mahomes as well. Like, I don't really know how NFL teams are going to compete when they're paying their QBs that much against the next Patrick Mahomes that's coming in on a rookie contract at 5 million. That team has an extra 40 million to spend on their roster.
We spoke about this. By the way, we're talking to Rich Tinley of Draft Tech, who covers the Jets. Rich is talking to us directly from Ireland. Rich, we spoke about this, and Ralph brought up a good quote. Ralph, why don't you tell Rich? I'm sure he heard it, but what Bill Parcells said if they kept Sam Darnold and drafted Zach Wilson.
Yeah, Bill Parcells' philosophy was if you have 2 starting quarterbacks, you have no starting quarterbacks, because no matter, the minute one makes a mistake, there's just too much pressure, and he just never felt like it would work. I think that Darnold, I can't see him staying. I just feel like the vibe is just wrong. If for Darnold to go in there, I mean, can you imagine if the first interception he throws in the first quarter of the game? I mean, the boos are going to be unbelievable. I don't even think it'd be fair to him. So I just think he has to go. And if it's a matter of a 4th round pick rather than the 3rd round pick, I don't think they should be picky about it. I think they have to move on myself.
Well, for me, I'd be the opposite, because I'd be looking at Darnold playing this year as a way of sort of bringing on the rest of the roster while protecting the rookie when the roster isn't.
I have nothing. I agree with you. I have nothing. Yeah, I have nothing against your quarterback.
I think in terms of like what you were saying with Parcells, and I agree to a certain extent, it can be dicey. But if it's communicated what's expected, as in, like, if Sam Darnold's told this is your last year with the Jets, we're giving you a full 16-game season as a shop window to go out and bring this team along for our new rookie next year. You've got a full 16-game season to improve your stock when you hit free agency to earn big money. He's going to jump at that opportunity. You're drafting a rookie, you tell him you're going to stiff for a year while we build this team, and you're going to learn. If he knows what he's doing and Sam Darnold knows what he's doing, I get the fans mightn't like it, but the fans don't really understand that it's like the guys have a 5-year contract. and I'm assuming the end of 5 years, they need to have a team good enough to win the Super Bowl. It's not they need to win the Super Bowl 5 years in a row. You know what I mean? So like, I'm okay with sort of having this season as a rebuilding one. And, you know, if Sam Darnold throws a pick because we're getting the roster better and our rookie is waiting in the wings, like, I'm not saying don't play the rookie maybe week 13, 14, whatever, to blood him in at the end of the season. But yeah, like, I'd be okay with watching Sam Darnold throw picks this year if it meant we're getting the Super Bowl in 5 years' time.
Rich,
You know, that's
if I
my
had
logic.
if I had a choice, though, to be honest with you, of trading Sam Darnold for a 4th or 5th round pick and having a guy like Alex Smith start and Zach Wilson sit, I'd rather have that, to be honest with you. I just don't see it working out, but it could. Look, it's a scenario that it's a possibility. It's been talked about more and more by more and more professionals on ESPN, NFL.com. Hey, listen, let's get right into the draft.
Sure.
Okay, and I'm going right to your website at Draft Tech. And I think, Ralph, did you have a question about the consensus?
Yeah, what consensus? I mean, who are these? You're getting a bunch of different opinions and just combining them through the mock. How's it working?
Like from the Jets' perspective, or?
Yeah, I mean, the picks that I saw of yours, now, are those the picks that you think are going to happen or that you want to happen?
The way I sort of do it is you can pick the same players week in, week out, and it becomes very boring. So
Yeah,
I like to change it up a little and show what potential options would be. Let's just say, like 1 week at 23, I might take a corner, which means the guard might be taken later. So what options of guards are in the 2nd round or the 3rd round potentially? So I'd switch it around week by week. Like this week, actually, as I said, at pick 23, I took Wyatt Davis again from Ohio State, just because I think offensive guard is a huge need. But there is a few guys that you could probably take in the 2nd round there if you were, like, as I said, Robert Saleh might be intrigued, but a guy like Gregory Rousseau at 23, if he is sitting there, like, before this year started, Rousseau was potentially a top 5 pick in this draft had he have played this year. So, you know, if you were getting him at 23 and pairing him up with Lawson, like, I would be against, like, I would still prefer Davis, but I would still be very excited at the prospect of Lawson and Rousseau on the ends of Quinn and Williams. And that's, you know, I suppose that's just, the smash mouth bit of football that I like. So having those big guys up front would be really, really nice. But again, Wyatt Davis is another one of those, and he's badly needed too. So we've got options, I think. Like, I'm sort of sold on that we're taking a quarterback at 2, particularly after the trade scenarios there with Miami and whatnot. I'm sure the Jets were probably called about like what they wanted for the 2nd overall pick. The fact being that they're holding on to it, they either didn't get what they thought it was worth, which, going by what Miami gave up for the 3rd overall pick, was a lot. So to turn that type of haul down, potentially, they must be really set on somebody at number 2. And I think they're probably happy enough with either Wilson or Lawrence. As I said, I'm still not sold that Lawrence will go 1st overall. But then, you know, Justin Fields could be an option for them. You just never know. When it comes to sort of quarterbacks, you know, particularly when there's a couple of guys in and around each other, it depends on how they might interview for you or what type of fit you might see them being for your team. So I do still think that Wilson, in terms of like the skill set he has and what he's shown, is probably the best prospect to improve moving forward, if you know
Rich,
what I mean.
I'm just curious. I love Wyatt Davis. I thought he was better his junior year than last year. But I'm just curious, who would you take if he was available and Alavi Tucker from USC was available?
I suppose Leatherwood from Bama would be another guy that in the sort of maybe 2nd to 3rd round area. Smith as well, another guy from Tennessee. Both those 2 guys could be options in the like sort of 2nd to 3rd round area as well. I think after that, to be fair, like if you were looking sort of for a late round prospect at offensive guard, there's 1 or 2 guys there from Kentucky and stuff, but there's nothing that really, you know, sort of sticks out as this is a guy that you need to keep an eye on. There's no real small school guys this year either that sometimes can sneak in and become like a decent pick in the 4th round. There's not really, like, I think if you're coming out of round 3 without your offensive guard, you're probably in trouble.
I think they need two offensive linemen. I think Ralph agrees in the first three picks. That's my feeling. Now,
First 3 rounds, yeah.
first three rounds, yeah.
Yeah.
First 3 rounds.
Yeah.
You have on their second round pick number 34, Greg Newsome from Northwestern, which I find fascinating for a couple of reasons. First of all, I don't know if Caleb Farley is slipping because of his back surgery. I hear all different things, but what sticks out in my mind about Greg Newsome, that guy did a tremendous job when they played Justin Fields, when Northwestern played them. I don't know if I don't think he gets out in the first round. Do you think there's a chance he's going to be there in the second round?
Probably not, if I'm being honest. Like I have, if you actually read what I wrote, I think he's a guy that probably will be drafted in the first round. Like he's absolutely fantastic value if he does fall there. But like there are always players that you look at and say, oh well, he's a shoe-in for round one, and then you see him sitting there at round two, and you're like, okay, let's nab him. This is great value. And you know, if it happened with Newsom for us, like that would be ideal. I do agree. I do think he's probably going to be picked maybe in the top 20, if I'm being honest.
That's what I think.
He has that talent level as well. But yeah, like obviously when he's there for me in the mock scenario, I'm obviously going to take that because of the huge need at cornerback. Like I actually think, as much as you said that we need two offensive line players, I wouldn't be surprised if we actually draft two cornerbacks. You know,
if Farley slipped to 23, would you take him?
Caleb
yeah,
Farley.
like I think any guy, like obviously you want to know what the injury is and what type of long-term prospect that could play. But other than that, like in terms of talent, yeah, I think he'd be a great addition.
Well, that's the question. You have to weigh the two at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, we can only sort of know so much about the prospect.
Yeah.
The teams will know a lot more in terms of injuries and you
Right.
know all of those type of things that you know we can't really, I suppose, adjust our decisions based on what we don't know. We can only make them on what we do. So, yeah, if his injury was an issue, obviously, then we probably wouldn't be looking at 23 being a good option, you know. But if it wasn't a major one, fire ahead.
By the way, just to throw in another name, I read a quick article today, could be clickbait. Someone was saying that the Jets are very interested in Tevin Jenkins, the offensive tackle from Oklahoma State, who can play guard too. So, and they were talking like maybe at 23. And at Pittsburgh, I was also interested in them at 24. So just another name to think about.
You know,
yeah, I think where we were actually positioned in the draft, like as I said, I'm making the assumption we're taking QB at 2.
Right.
I think at 23, like our first 3 picks, I think we're going to have a lot, because we have a lot of holes, we're going to have a lot of potentially good options to fill those holes. It's just a matter of what hole you want filled with what talent. And I think, you know, like, as I said, Davis would probably be my top guy for guard, based on, I suppose, maybe just the fact being that we have Becton there as well. That Wyatt Davis strikes me as the same type of style, like as in he'd fit in well with Becton.
Yeah.
So, like, if that's the type of line you're trying to build, so that's why he would be probably my. Creed Humphreys as well as another guy actually looks really good prospect.
I love, you know who I like, but the only thing is I wouldn't take him in the first round. If somehow I could get him possibly in the
I know what you're going to say.
Who am I going to say, Ralph?
Landon Dickerson.
Landon Dickerson.
Yeah.
Because that guy, he's a ball player. The only thing is he's had 5 major injuries.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's
Remember the last time we took a guy from Alabama who had a lot of injuries? D. Milner.
Well, you know what reminds me of? You guys remember Dwayne Robertson? And after they moved up, they used 2 number 1s. Remember that?
Of course, I still get nightmares.
Found out he had bone on both knees.
Oh,
I know. So
I'm personally, I'm not a huge fan of any Alabama cornerback. I don't think the way they are sort of coached down in Alabama, that they are coached to what's required to play the position in the NFL. I think Alabama is a lot more of a read and react type of thing, like you're playing it off. Well, I would have obviously been judging them on like man-on-man corners, like the likes of Revis. So they don't play that Revis style of defense down in Alabama. Like there's not really a lot of corners you can name from Alabama over the last 20 years that have really excelled in the NFL, but yet they've had a stacked defense for what seems like an eternity, you know?
All right,
No,
you
yeah.
you go ahead, Ralph.
No, I'm all set. Go on.
You have a player. I'm just curious. Javonte Williams from North Carolina as your first third round pick. What do you like about him?
What's not to like? Everything. To me, he's actually like probably one of my favorite prospects in the draft. I'm one of these type of guys. I would not be like drafting a running back in round one unless it was like past the 20th pick. But like when you get into round two and round three, I think you'll find a lot of really, really good talented guys there. I think he's probably one of the most talented guys in this year's draft. Like you have Travis Etienne from Clemson, another really good player. But again, you'd be probably looking at maybe taking him at 23 potentially, or certainly at the second round. You've got Harris as well, another guy that could come in and play really. And then there's another guy in North Carolina. He's more of a sort of a catching guy, Carter, who's another option that I'd like in round 3 or 4 potentially as well. So yeah, the Williams for me is probably like he can break tackles. He literally kind of does everything. He could be a really, really special player at the next level. And in terms of like a fit for us, if I'm just, as I said, I'm going on maybe the San Francisco model of what I've been witnessing over the last couple of years with them, I think he'd fit in lovely in that type of scenario as well. Even with the running backs we already have, I'm not really a huge fan of P. Ryan, to be fair. I don't think he's ever going to shine at this level. Like I think as a sort of a guy you could bring in off the bench or off the practice squad or something like that in case of injury, fine. But if you're maybe relying on him turning into a player, I just don't really think he has it at the NFL level. So that's why I would be looking at running back, potentially as well if you're getting a QB in this year starting new. You probably want to build up a good run game if you're going to start the rookie, you know?
Yeah, you have Josh Myers as then the third round pick, the center, and the Jets are reluctant to move Connor McGovern from center to guard. What's your thought about Josh Myers? Would you move him to guard, or would you keep him at center, try to talk McGovern into moving over to guard?
I would probably look at moving McGovern to guard, only because I've also picked Davis.
Right.
So I think like having Davis and Myers, like that sort of tandem from Ohio State playing together, I would probably prefer that than having them separated at playing either guard position. So maybe that might be the reason why I would keep Myers as the center moving forward in that scenario. But again, it still would depend on how he performs because like third round pick guys, you don't really have a huge expectation level for them to start day one. It can happen, but like we shouldn't be counting on it either, you know?
Yeah, we're going to move along. We're starting to run out of time. The clock is our enemy. We're speaking to Rich Tinley of drafttech.com, a tremendous website. You have to go to it. He covers the Jets, and Rich is over in Ireland. You have Hunter Long with the 4th round pick, Tutu Atwell with the 5th round pick. Quickly, give us your take on both those guys.
Hunter Long, I think after Pitts could be probably the second best receiving tight end in the draft. So good value in round 3. I think tight end is a huge need. That's probably been a huge need for maybe the last 7 or 8 years since probably Dustin Keller, to be fair.
Are you giving up on Chris Herndon?
No, I'm not giving up on him. I'm just not relying on him. You know, like, yeah, he had an okay rookie season, but that's basically it. You know, personally, I would have maybe looked at getting something in free agency. Like, I was a little bit disappointed we didn't even go for somebody like Kyle Rudolph, somebody a bit of an all-round guy. I know he was a bit older, but if you are contemplating drafting a rookie, having a guy like that in there who you know what he can do for a team would have been a good option. Again, Long, you're probably not going to get him coming in and playing to a high level straight away, but he's a very nice prospect in terms of development potential too. So,
right.
And he's probably the most talented guy we'd have on the roster at tight end, you know, with drafting him.
Rich, I want to pick up the pace because I want, at the very end, I want you to tell Ralph and I a couple of your sleepers that aren't there. Tutu Atwell, he's a short receiver from what I see. He's fairly quick. I just want to move to the next one because this is one guy that fascinates me. I can't even pronounce his last name, Josh Imatohebe from Illinois. I remember he was a transfer from USC, not this past season, but the season before. He had, I think, like 19 yards per reception. So to me, that's a very, very interesting pick. And it's funny because I like to list 2 or 3 players that really fascinate me. He's one of them. I also listed Tylan Wallace from Oklahoma State, and also I like Justin Hilliard from Ohio State. Give us your take on this guy, Josh from Illinois.
Yeah, I think when you get that far down into the rounds as well, like, it's a bit of a crapshoot. Like, in terms of, like, I suppose, like 6'2", 215 pounds as a wide receiver, like, he sort of fits that physical stature that we're looking for. Well, I feel we're looking for a San Francisco type of style. So he ticks that box, and I think he's got got a lot of good development potential as well. I think, as you said, when he did the transfer over, like, it didn't look like it affected him hugely. If Anthony still, like, performed to what you kind of would have expected, if you know what I mean, what his talent level was. So that was probably a good sign for him too. In terms of like other prospects at that level, another guy he's probably maybe going to be a little bit higher than him would be the Clemson wide receiver, Amari Rodgers, who you could maybe get in rounds 4 or 5. That I think, if you were looking for a Deebo Samuel type of wide receiver for the Jets, he would be that guy for me. He would be probably one of the better mid to late round fit wide receivers for the Jets. He's a good, like, sort of deep threat as well. I think he had 10 touchdowns. I think he was in the top 10 in terms of receiving yards in college there, just the season just gone. So, there might be quite a few teams looking at him, but, like, he even done, I think, a few reps at running back at his pro day and things like that to show his versatility. So, yeah, I'd like him maybe a little bit more than Josh Mobatari, if that's how we pronounce him. But yeah, it's tough because I suppose at that time, that sort of area of the draft, you're kind of looking for something that you can develop into something more. And I think both those guys are probably it,
And you got to think of special teams. Ralph, did you have any questions on those 2 guys?
Amari Rodgers, you know who his father is? It's T. Martin. You know T. Martin?
Yeah.
He was one of the Brady 6, actually. One of the quarterbacks picked before Brady.
Really?
Yeah. He was also Sam Darnold's OC at USC.
Okay.
So he's got a lot going. So yeah, Rodgers, he's small, but he's good. I like Rodgers too. I think I'd like to take a player like that in the later rounds, anticipating that Crowder's going to be gone after this year. Receiver, I'm fine with that later. I don't feel the need after getting Davis to have a receiver in the first 3 rounds. I want to save that for certainly cornerback and lineman first. I do love Javonte Williams like you do. I have a feeling he might go late second. He does break, Marty. This guy breaks more tackles than anyone in the country, I think, statistically. He's good.
He turns the corner.
Oh yeah, he's really good, man. I like those guys built low to the ground. That's my type of running back.
Okay.
Yeah. Just as you look on with the links there, I suppose one of these late round guys are sort of under the radar prospects is a guy I had a cornerback for maybe round 5 or 6 as well, Mark Gilbert, who's a cousin of Darrell Revis. He had his pro day there during the week for Duke, and he ran a 4.36. Now he's
where did he go to school?
Duke.
Oh, he went to Duke. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Gilbert, isn't Gilbert? He was the pro player, Ralph. He was his uncle, right?
His uncle was drafted 3rd overall by the LA Rams.
The Rams maybe. Yeah, Sean Gilbert. He was a big talent.
Yeah, so just probably the knock on Gilbert is he, 3 seasons ago in 13 games he'd 6 picks and people were like taking notice, and then the last 2 seasons he had a hip injury. And then he followed it up last year with a foot injury, and he played only 4 games over the last 2 years.
Right.
But when I seen that he ran a 4.36, now he's only 170 pounds for a corner, but if you were looking for a late round sort of corner back with a little bit of speed who could have the potential to turn into something and have a sort of a quite good Jet sort of link with
How,
Vinny
how,
Weems'
how,
cousin.
how tall is he?
I think he's a 6'1" or 6'2", but
Oh,
like
so
he
he
is
could
very
fill out a
well.
little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so he has the potential, but like I still
Uh-huh.
would have expected, like in the off-season program, that he might have looked to maybe put on 10, 12 pounds.
Really?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Rich, the clock is our enemy. This is terrific. I wish we could go for 3 hours. Again, we're talking to Rich Tinley from drafttech.com. We got about a minute. Rich, quickly, 3 sleepers that we should keep our eye on. Maybe Joe Douglas, he could feel the vibes coming overseas from Ireland if you keep thinking about them. Do you have 3 sleepers that we could look at that the Jets might get in the late rounds?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to go with Gilbert as one as the cornerback. Another cornerback I was looking at as a late round option was Syracuse corner Trill Williams. I think he's a nice little late round prospect. And then probably a little bit off the beaten track because it was changed into a 4-3. There's a guy I like in the late round who probably fits the 4-3 outside linebacker role. Is a guy called Max Richardson. So like he wouldn't have really been a 3-4. I would always probably looked at more edge guys, but this year I had to look at a few more sort of outside linebacker prospects. And he
Where does he go? Where does he
go?
go to school?
I just can't think now. Let me have a look because I just have his name here. I don't have the school.
As you look it up, we're going to wrap this up. And Rich, your column comes out how often on drafttech.com?
Yeah, we run a mock draft weekly. Obviously, we can like resim. That's the great thing about us. If there's a trade happens, like we can resim straight away and have a new mock out. Like a free agency, the same with those big signings. So yeah, we update it really regularly. Same with the big board. We've got other options there like the draft simulator, and we have a dedicated Jets team page that you can check out that gives all my opinions on what the needs are, what our picks are for all rounds. So that's a really good feature as well, I feel, for Jet fans.
We want to have you on again after the draft. We'll have our extended version. I want to thank you for coming on. This has been Jets Rewind. I want to thank Ralph Schrager, Rich Tinley, our guest. Until next time, everyone. Thank you.